Hello again from my front porch, where it has been a beautiful day. I mean, like literally gorgeous, beautiful, a little breezy, a little windy, but I'll take the wind. That's okay. But it's been sunny. It's been a perfect temperature. It's just been, I mean, the grass is green, the sky is blue. It's wonderful. And I was out in quite a bit of it today. I actually went over to see my parents over in Carroll. Spent some time with them today, helping with some things. And yeah, just so road tripping back and forth, and then also just hanging out there a little bit and hanging out here, and yeah, it's the I will definitely take green and warm over white and cold, meaning snow, wintertime. But while I was at my parents, as is often the case when I'm with them, we're dealing with, at least for part of the visit, we're going to talk about some of their governmental programs or some of the paperwork that has to be done for different things, and we did a little bit of that today again as well. And one of the things that really stood out to me, and I've been reading some articles actually recently about this as well, we were talking about their Social Security benefits and what they make in Social Security. And I saw an article recently that actually pointed out, because a couple of things here. One, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but it's something I don't mind complaining about. I mean, talking about again, and that is this reality check that Social Security benefits. They go up. There's a cost of living increase, a COLA they call it, the cost of living adjustment, and that actually is linked to legislation that goes back to the 1970s, signed by President Richard Nixon, and it just automatically connects an increase in Social Security to what the rate of inflation is, at least at the point of time that is being done. It's nothing Congress votes on. It's nothing that it is just an automatic trigger that just happens. And so inflation is at this rate, and so we adjust the percentage of the Social Security checks. Everything just happens automatically. One of the things that has been problematic for now, we should pause and say it's good that they adjust for cost of living. That because as prices of things go up, you want to make sure senior citizens are able to still afford to purchase things. But a lot of senior citizens, my parents included, depend on some other governmental programs as well. I mean, they get the Social Security money, and that helps pay expenses. My parents fortunately own their home now at this point. They've paid it off just prior to them both being in a retired state. And they own their car. They're both their vehicles, their truck and car. Those also were paid off by this point. And so, their Social Security benefits really just pay their ongoing monthly expenses, bills, utilities, food, those kind of things. They are fortunate that they don't have a lot of medical expenses because they don't qualify for Medicare straight out or Medicaid. I always flip those two around. One of them is income-based, generally speaking, and they don't qualify for it. Why? Because they make too much money. Their only source of income is Social Security. And this is part of the point here, is that we have this automatic increase in Social Security benefits to match cost of living. However, other programs that senior citizens depend on have thresholds for income, cutoffs that you have to be below that threshold to qualify for those services. And if you are above that threshold, you get nothing. There's no graduated scale for these things. There's just this cliff effect. Boom, all or nothing. Boom, boom. And my parents, between their two Social Security checks, make too much money. And so they could not be on those programs. However, fortunately here in the state of Iowa, there are what they call waivers, where waivers look at they do consider income, but they look at the need. What is the individual's need for certain services? And so if you qualify for these waivers, then you can sort of backdoor get access to some of these other programs that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get because you make too much money. And so my parents, fortunately, that were because they definitely have issues, physical limitations, circumstances that it's just obvious they need these other support network things. And so they depend on some of these other programs. But even beyond that, there are other things. Case in point, there's a program where they can avoid paying property tax because they're below a certain income threshold. They used to actually qualify for that. Piece of cake, no problem, after they were both retired and just living on their Social Security. But then, through the cost of living adjustments, their Social Security checks both went up and up and up and up in increments, and now they make too much money to qualify for that program. The best they can qualify for is a program that freezes the amount of their property taxes. They still have to pay, they just don't have to pay if it had increased. So they can pay an older amount, but they still have to pay. Whereas before they didn't used to have to pay. Because as those cost of living adjustments happen with Social Security, those checks go up, but these thresholds on other programs do not move. They stay where they're at. And that becomes a problem that trips up a lot of people. And now I was actually reading, and so my parents already deal with that. When we address that, and we have to be mindful that there are other things that they would like to be part of as well, that they would like to be with, and sometimes they can't be because they make too much money. Well, it's going to get even worse because cost of living adjustment is about to hit again. Now, there was a couple of years ago that President Biden actually was out bragging that they were going to be seeing, was it 10% or even a little higher than that, 10 point something, increase in Social Security payments, like senior citizens should be all, thank you, President Biden, for being so great to us. And when he has nothing to do with it. When Trump was president, any increases he had nothing to do with. When any president since Nixon has had nothing to do with the increase in Social Security checks, except where their economic policies may have influenced the rate of inflation. Now, at one point here in the last few years under President Biden, we did see over 10% inflation. And that was a year where everybody got big boost in their Social Security checks. Now you'll hear people say, but inflation has gone down. That's a lie. Anybody telling you inflation has gone down is either ignorant of the way things are, or they are intentionally lying to you because they have some agenda, some reason to. Same thing for somebody that tells you that the economy right now is in great shape. It is not in great shape. And somebody who tells you that it is either is ignorant of the realities of what's going on in our nation right now, or they are intentionally lying to you because they have a reason to. Just keep that in mind. But what I was just reading about with this whole cost of living adjustment thing is there is another element of this that I hadn't even thought about. And that is here, again, in recent time, and this is not the only window of time when it's happened, but they were just looking at recent time here, that inflation rate has fluctuated. Now, inflation has not gone down. Inflation itself has not gone down. What has gone down is the rate of inflation. That means the amount of the increase. At one point, there was a 10% inflation, which means the cost of everything was going up, whatever it was, another 10%. Now it's more like 3%, maybe a little slightly under 3%. And so people are like, oh, inflation's gone down. It was 10, now it's 3. Everything was going up 10% cost before. Things are still going up, but now they're only going up 3% as opposed. So yeah, small victories, I guess. But still, the point is, it's still a line graph, and the prices keep going up, 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 up. That's relevant to this point here now, because when there's the cost of living adjustment for Social Security, it is made at a fixed point in time, a certain point, and that adjustment is based off of what inflation is doing at the designated reference point to look at. But what if inflation leading up to that window has been all over the map. For example, the article that I was just reading was talking about inflation having been higher, which drove prices of things up higher, drove other wages, other services, raw materials, production, produce creative material, all this kind of stuff drives all those costs up. Well, then rate of inflation comes down a bit. Not inflation itself, the rate of inflation comes down a little bit. Well, now prices are still going up, but not as much. Well, that's good. However, that earlier impact of where everything was going up has already hit. It is already out there. Those prices are already up. Well, now the rate of inflation has gone down a little bit, and so this number over here becomes what the cost of living adjustment connects to. Yay! Senior citizens, you're getting more in your Social Security payments. It sounds like it's going to be around 3%, maybe just slightly under, but you're going to be getting that. However, it wasn't all that long ago that inflation was at a higher rate than that, and the cost and pricing of everything had gone higher. And now you're going to get a cost of living adjustment that does not match what those higher increases were. Now, some increase is better than none. I mean, that's always the way I always felt about pay raise too. It's like, well, would I love to get a $10,000 pay raise every year? Absolutely I would. But if I get a $3,000 pay raise or a $2,000 pay raise that's divided up over the course of the year, am I gonna reject it? No, because it's still moving in the right direction. They didn't take $2,000 off my check, and so I'm not the kind that complains about that. Some other people get a little more uptight about, I expected to see more, and that's okay. A whole nother topic for another time. But in this particular case, yeah, a little cost of living adjustment is better than no cost of living adjustment. That is absolutely true. However, it's even when they get that money, depending on their situation and depending on what part of the country the senior citizens are living in, and whether or not they have any other sources of income. My parents do not. Their only source of income are their 2 Social Security checks. That's it. That cost of living adjustment may only scratch the surface of what their actual costs to live now are. Then you couple that with the cost of living adjustment further pushing their income higher, and these other cutoffs for other support programs not being moved, not being adjusted along with them, and you continue to create a situation that is going to grow and be even more problematic for a lot of people. And I keep focusing on senior citizens because that's my parents. That's where I'm seeing this. But there are a lot more people than just senior citizens who receive Social Security. And even more than that, there are a lot more people who depend on these other programs that, we really need to, I don't want to get too far off on this, but we really need to talk about this cliff effect issue that happens with so many of these programs, because they actually become something that stifles somebody from wanting to actually do better, to get ahead. It's somebody that literally may reject a promotion or an opportunity to earn more money because every month or every 2 or 3 months, it used to be when my ex-wife and I, when we were on government support programs, when both Ashley and Alex were born, every month we had to file the paperwork to basically prove we were still poor enough to qualify for the programs that we were on. That's really demoralizing, and is just it does not inspire the individual to want to get beyond that. And some would say that's the point, that's why it's set up that way. If that's the case, well, that's really that's a big problem. But I that's why I said I feel like just these programs in general need to have more of a graduated scale, because the goal of any of these programs, now some people are never going to get off them. I get there are some people, and I'm not being critical. I'm saying there are some people who their situation simply is they will never be able to support themselves fully or 100%, maybe at all. And society, we have an obligation to look out for those who can't take care of themselves. But for those who can take care of themselves, who may just need some support in the short run and until they can get back on their feet, we need to have processes in place that encourage them to do that, to get off the government program and back on their own. Right now, most government programs are not set up that way at all. But again, that's a separate topic. In my parents' case, they're among those people that their situation is not going to change. If it changes, it's only going to change actually to get worse. It's not going to get better. And so the idea that they might potentially not qualify for something because of their income and all they get is Social Security checks, but the income is going up because inflation keeps going up because of economic policies. It's like, okay, how much more out of control could they possibly feel? They are literally at the mercy of people who don't know them and apparently don't care about them. And these economic policies and procedures that sometimes I'm not in their situation, but even in my own side, I scratch my head and think, what are these political people thinking right now? Why? What's the rationale here? There is no easy answer, but this is something that this is me putting on my teacher hat and just sort of educating. I'm not making a political statement. I'm not being critical of one party or the other. And I know I mentioned President Biden. That's only because he's president right now, and it's his economic policies that are implemented right now that we're working under. But this would be the case with anybody that was president and seeing this situation being played out. And so it's really more about the processes, about how these things are structured and who are we really looking out for. Because I'm looking out for my parents, and the problem is I'm having to help them on a whole bunch of government programs that allegedly are designed to look out for them as well. Well, if that's the case, then why do I have to be on the alert to look out for their best interest in programs that supposedly are there to help them? That's a question I can't answer because I ask it on a regular basis. Anyway, I know it's not the most uplifting, but it is one that's educational, and please be aware of this. And as you see politicians, as we're coming up in election year, you see politicians talking about these kind of things, or if you have opportunity to be in a place where you can ask questions about these kind of things, do so. Push them. Let them know that we're paying attention to this stuff. And, not only do we have questions, but we have legitimate concerns about the misalignment that these policies are now creating and the problems that's going to create for us in the very near future, actually some right now today. All right, with that, I'll see y'all next time from my front porch.